So we got this website, Understanding Uncertainty. It's got a lot of stuff on, blogs and things like that. And there's me on YouTube taking my clothes off. That's a risk. It's two of me taking my clothes off. That's a risk. And it's great. I can see the reflection. It's like, I've been going to school stuff. We do a lot of schools work, and in fact, I've been advising on the UGCSE math syllabus, which I don't know if you've seen. It's split probability and statistics, a lot more probability than the GCSE math syllabus. It's a great thing. And as was mentioned, I also do that for the students. Do people recognise this? Who recognises that? Great. You poor people who don't. You're just not up for it. So this is the Wipeout course. This is in Argentina, Buenos Aires, and you go to this, jump over the big balls, fall in the water, and try to win 10,000, which is what I did. And if you were a schools audience, I'd show you the film of me doing it, but you're not, so tell me. And there's a play for them all. It's not bad, it's not bad really. We're translating it into American Is it Marmite? Shag? What are those words? Let me convert it into American. Got lots of American statistic. So I'm a statistician, but I just recognise that people do have trouble with numbers. I don't know whether it's a joke or something. And so the communication of numbers. What I'd like to talk about is, first of all, sort of visual communication of known risks, when we feel we're happy with the numbers. And then to talk about alternative metaphors. I believe that numbers do not speak for themselves. If you're communicating them, they have to be embedded in the story. And people, they create an emotional response. Oh yes, chance regress. I talk about ownership. What we know is just randomness, and how much is to do with what we don't know yet. And then I'd like to finish off with some stuff on deeper uncertainty. What do we do when we feel we don't know what the risks are? You build models, and actually sometimes you might think, actually these models are very good. We know it's not a very good representation of the system. How can we qualify our modelling ability? The fact we can acknowledge we're not actually doing that well. And there's a couple of papers there that I'll keep referring to. But most of this is in law. So as mentioned, I did this TV documentary, and they said, you've got to do something risky. I said, oh great, can I swim with sharks like Brian Cox? And they said, no, you're not Brian Cox, and we've only got 300 quid. So that was it, no swimming with sharks. So I jumped out of it, they said, you've got to jump out of there. You've got to do skydiving. Have people done skydive? Have you done skydive? What did you think of it? Were you frightened?
We were. Yeah.
Were you nervous?
We actually did it on our own.
You did a proper one? Yeah, that costs more, they wouldn't let me do that. So they strengthened themselves and pushed me out of the plane. So I want to know, well, what risks am I taking? So anybody got an idea of what the chance of me dying was on that? What would you estimate it to be? You got an idea? How many, out of 1 million skydives, how many think people do you think done? 100. They're not 100, they're not so much. You would have got me out of that. No, it's, okay, if you look at the UK data, 4,600,000 jumps over 20 years, all hit that. Almost exactly 10 in a million, 1 in 100,000. And the US is similar, both websites, the UK and the US, you can find this data. They don't put it on the front page. You can search quite hard for it. If you Google parachute safety, the US one has gone down to about 7 in a million deaths over the last few years. Now, if you're a tandem jump, out of a third of a million, 2 deaths. Actually, I think we're probably related. It's a non-independent event. So let's call it one event, shall we? So that's 1 in a third of a million, so 3 in a million. So I reckon, put together, given the plane going up, it was about 7 in a million chance of dying. Now, is that big? Is that small? 7 in a million? Should I be worried? What's 7 in a million? Well, fortunately, and this is the first thing that we play in the book, Which is a 1 in a million chance of death. And I wish I'd invented this. Ron Howard at Stanford invented this. Published by 1970. 1 in a million chance of death. It's a really useful unit because it enables you to convert almost anything you do can be expressed as a whole number of microns. So it's equivalent to flipping a coin 20 times and you get hits every time. So 1 in a million. You think, well, that's pretty unlikely. So okay, let's look at the experiment. Okay, I did flip a coin 20 times. It's a fair coin. I do carry 2 headed coins. Otherwise, it's not really fair. So 20 times, if it comes up heads every time, the gas jets will open and you will all have a peaceful day. So it's a good game. What do I have to pay you to play? This goes to the willingness to pay argument. What do I have to pay you to play this game? Who would do it for 1,000 quid? Yes, of course you would. People like, so of course, who'd do it for a quid? Who'd do it for £1.70? That's what the Department of Transport the value of the statistical life is £1,700,000 of the Department of Transport. That means to reduce risk by 1 in a million, the winning is £1.70. So the official figure is £1.70. It's a bit more than that. So, but you know, we compare what we do. 250 miles, actually, well, this is a year about 300 miles in the car now for a microwatts. On average, 20 miles, 20 miles cycling, slightly less walking, 50 miles, 6 miles. Was that 6? Yeah, 6 miles on a motorbike. Gone up to about 7 now. 4 miles in the US is less. 4 miles on a motorbike. So enables, I say, so jumping out of that plane, about 7, that's about 40 miles on a motorbike. Equivalent to about 20,000 miles in a car. So that might get a picture. But you can compare it with other things. In fact, what's quite nice, it's a useful unit, because it's about 50 million people, give or take, in England and Wales. 50 a day die of non-natural causes. There's 17,000 deaths and accidents and violence every day. Not quite like that. Every year in the UK. So it's in England. So 50. So our average risk is 1 in a million. So you miserable lot, weren't willing to pay £1,000 for that death. But in fact, that's what you're being exposed to every day. More if you're an old fool like me wobbling on ladders doing DIY, and more if you're a young kid going up driving his car. But it's an average of 1 micromole a day is our daily dose, which we're happy with. We don't actually care what you do. You also be brave enough to try it today. So 1 micromole. So it's quite a good unit. So you can say that jumping out of the plane is like 7 days, a week's worth of normal risk. That's not bad. That's really good. So getting out of bed and going to work, about 1. This is like very risk allowance. And this is quite an interesting one. The lifetime risk of an asteroid is 1 micromole. National Academy of Sciences report. In the US says it's about 1 in 77 million risk per year of any of us being killed due to an asteroid. The point is, it's wonderful. They work out the average number of people killed per year. The expected number is 91. Now, nobody's ever been killed by an asteroid. So it's one of those ridiculous averages, which is enormous up on 0, and then 1 in 10 million years is going to wipe us out. So 91 is the most, it's like, average number of legs is 1. It's a completely pointless average. But basically means 1 in 77 million is about 1 micromole per life. Actually, because that means 70 million years we expect the civilization extinguishing asteroid, and the last one was 70 million years ago. So watch out. Anyway, I've just put some other things up there. You're giving birth, serving in Afghanistan, peak risk period in Iraq. That was very, very high risk time. US casualties in Iraq in 2009 was 17 a day on average, but they had so that's average over everybody served. So that's about 47, that's about a daily risk of heroin, which takes heroin. But that's about that time in 2009 in Afghanistan, the British 9,000 British personnel, averaged over everybody on front and front. That was people going out of control. It's equivalent to like everybody, all those 9,000 people, going on a 250 mile ride on a motorbike every single day. But of course, nothing compared with going over the top of the song and doing it. So it enables us to compare these things in a way which, and because it enables you to make all these sort of comparisons risks of horse riding, which we reckon is about 1 micromole each time you get a horse to go out. We're taking ecstasy, which we reckon is about 1 or 2 micromoles a tablet. We're going horse riding, the addiction to horse riding, which is called ecstasy. So and they are broadly the same. I think ecstasy is slightly more dangerous, but eventually it was a lot more than so he got into real trouble for that because he was comparing the wholesome with the unwholesome. But I think they're really valid comparisons. They're activities taken by young people for fun, voluntarily. So in terms of the natural way in which people distinguish risks, the voluntary against the non-voluntary, exactly whether they get imposed upon us, we choose to do them, whether they're part of a job, whether they're leisure, everything, they're all the same. It's just that this is culturally unacceptable comparison. And this encourages you to make those sorts of things. Okay, what about this kind of risk? This is the other kind of risk. So those are all very well for the things that are going to kill you on the spot. And if you survive, you'll be fine. And this is the sort of, I don't know, idea of a good night out, chip shop in Liverpool. But the risks of these, it's not appropriate to use micrometers. Because frankly, unless you choke on your spam fritter, you're eating it so rapidly, possibly because you get food poisoning from it, it's not going to be an acute risk, it's a chronic risk. It's things that affect our health, and if we have a lifetime habit of this kind of stuff, we will probably die. So the risk is a different type of risk. It's the longer term, not an immediate risk. And so what we're developing is a different unit. That's the thing that I've explored. That's the careless pork crosses lives. Headline from the Sun about the danger of the sausage. They come on the sausage. And when I do this at schools, I would mention I've got a sausage. I've got a sausage in the rain. The lethal sausage. Because there is a media obsession with the dangers of a fried breakfast. And for some reason, it's not great with a big fried breakfast every day. But this is a kind of typical story. Daily fry boosts cancer. This says the daily bacon sandwich, 50 grams of processed meat. Daily bacon sandwich increases your chances of pancreatic cancer. Now, let's believe that study. Nutritional epidemiology is not the greatest science, but let's believe it for a moment. Now, pancreatic cancer is nasty, horrible cancer. Fortunately, though, it's quite rare. 1 in 80 lifetime risk. Two people in this room who will get pancreatic cancer. Very nasty cancer. But how that 20% increase from that is quite a tricky thing to explain. We're going to do, how do we explain a 20% increase from a 1 in 80 risk? So we're using lots of different languages there. We're using percentage change, we're using 1 in 80 odds way of expressing it. It's shown by psychologists such as Gerker and Hugo and others that this kind of language is really bad for communication. People cannot do these manipulations. It's confusing, really difficult to grasp. And I find it very difficult to do those sums in your head. What is that? What does that mean? It's important, isn't it? Really true. So the way in which Giddens and others have been pushing it is to use natural frequencies. You try to convert everything to whole numbers. What we expect to happen among 100 people. And it looks like we've got that with the GCSE maths series. Now it's a way to teach properly. It's very much better than expected numbers among a group of people. It's just a metaphor for probability. Very effective. So what we'd say then is that there's how I would work on this is say there's 400 people who, like I'm sure like you are, smug middle class lot, sit down for your nice worthy breakfast, muesli and the right food, that sort of thing. But unfortunately still, out of those 400, 5 and 80 will get pancreatic cancer. Now let's compare it with 400 complete slobs every morning, eat a bacon sandwich or a breakfast. So real old fry every day of their lives. That's how many will get pancreatic cancer. Did you notice the difference? That's the difference. 1 in 400. It's the change in number in risk. If this was the drug, you would say the number needed to treat was 400 in order to get one extra case. In this case, it's the number needed to eat. So 400 people need to eat that every day of their life. Of course, actually, if you do eat that every day of your life, you won't live long enough to get it. This won't even happen. Something else will get you first. So this is really interesting. But it's been shown in psychological research that communicating to the relative risk is an inflated idea of importance. And it doesn't use newspapers do that all the time. So absolute risks, low health risks, and nutrition risks. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, tiny cancer risk. Imagine English newspapers saying tiny cancer risk. The Daily Mail saying that. In fact, it was the Guardian that messed it up. Went for the one big relative risk they could found in the whole report. Thyroid cancer, very rare cancer, looks like it would be more common in a small group of women in one particular area, will never be identifiable or measurable as a modelling aspect, and that's what they could have done. Absolutely disgraceful problem. And really manipulative and misleading problems. So what's the American president want? But we see this use of relative risk all the time trying to manipulate us. The direct-to-consumer advertising of drugs. The statin, your friendly statin, something like this Lipitor, particular statin reduces your risk of heart attack by 36%. If you've got good eyesight, you can see the small print down here which says that it means it goes down from 3% to 2% over 5 years. 100 people have to take it for 5 years with all the possible side effects, but they don't say that. They say 36%, that sounds great. So, I went to my GP and asked him about my disease, my chance was a heart attack or stroke, and he put, because it will reduce risk by about a third. Okay. So he told me that it's about 12% over the next 10 years. Actually means there's 1 in a million chance I'm going to have a dream this tall. So I'm willing to take the 1 in a million risk. You're not reasonable. Although I'm not going to pay £1,000. So there's, you can think of out of 100 people like me, 12 deaths with 12 heart attacks or strokes in 10 years, so I don't take the statin. But if all those people do take their statins, then 4 of those will be prevented. So that's the benefit. If all of those people take a statin for 10 years to prevent 4 heart attacks or strokes. Back to what I was saying. So there's 1 in 25 the number needs to treat 25 at that point. And those sorts of communications generally make people think, well, I don't know what, which is what the impact is. So the advert makes you take the statin, this. We've got a new cardiovascular risk calculator that's going into all, should be going into all donor practices that will be using a multiplicity of different communication messages, and none of them will use relative risks. Well, I'd like to introduce a metaphor and storytelling. That metaphor is the metaphor of 100 people like me. But there aren't 100 people like me. And people, anecdotally, find it quite easy to say, oh, I'm one of the green ones. So we could change the metaphor. Instead of saying 100 people like me, we could say 100 ways things might turn out for you. So not 100 different people. It's all you, but there's 100 possible futures. We don't know which one will happen. In which case the picture would look better like that. So, we just don't know which one. It's like throwing a dart. Is it which one's it going to hit? And you can scatter them around, which gives a much better impression of unpredictability. So my future is like if I take the scatter, throw the dart, it comes up yellow, and then it's safe from an attack. But I mean, most of the time, it won't make a difference. So let's change the method of possible futures. And I'll show you an example of that people are using that metaphor now for communicating this. People familiar with that book, with Danny Carlin's book? I think if you haven't read it, you've got the idea that it's very powerful work done by psychologists who won the Nobel Prize for economics. They're very simplistic but useful revision to 2 ways of thinking about a problem. System 1, your gut reactions, direct emotional, fast, automatic, heuristic thinking. Fantastically efficient. Really good. System 2 is, whoa, calm down, let's try to weigh it up, maybe some numbers, just think about stuff. And that we try to use both all the time, and I guess what I'm talking about is the fact that we need to be aware of both, and that actually what would be great is to try and get people to engage with more system 2 when they're thinking about risks. So some of the ideas that they use become rather quite familiar now in the discourse, like anchoring, the fact that people get upset. You tell people a number, and then that's everything else is pulled to that number, and you're very difficult to shift away from it. So, for example, one of the examples we which shows how badly this can affect this communication, was the swine flu epidemic. People remember that a couple of years ago, when Liam Donaldson did a press conference, and for some reason he emphasised this worst case scenario of 63,000 deaths. 65,000 deaths. Ludicrously worst case. The models, this was not a plausible range. Ludicrously too high. It's all the press picked up to 65,000 people who tried it. So they didn't construct the best case, likely. All the sex anchored onto that. So I'd like to show you how to prevent that kind of disease communication. But just to show an example again of anchoring, the National Hurricane Center of the US in 2005 used this idea for communicating risk recovery. So it's the cone of uncertainty. That's the white bit. 2 to 1 chance the hurricane will go through there rather than this. So white means 66% prediction. And then they put in the best gets and what they found is that people who lived just to the right of the path, the black line, thought, oh, I'll be right, didn't evacuate, the house got threatened, the plane evacuated. Well, I wasn't on the black line. Well, no, that black line could get anywhere. So there's a lot of complaints about the black line. And so they dropped it. They take another line because we got anchored on it. Now there's no black line. Just the cone. I don't think that's great. And what happened in the last, this is for Hurricane Irene in 2011, is that the media started using an alternative representation based on what they call possible future, possible paths. It's a spaghetti plot based on multiple computer runs of where the tornado might go, where the hurricane might go. So that's the possible futures method. It's very much like showing Monte Carlo, actually showing the results of Monte Carlo simulation to people and saying, well, we don't know what's going to happen, it could be one of these, and it's that sort of skeptic. Very proud, there's models, simulators, which it's so familiar, so obvious. But to use the actual raw angle to communicate, these are possible futures. That is very powerful. Sure, use that in practice to try to communicate the essential uncertainty. But this went straight into routine practice, straight into the routine people about any psychological testing. I think it's, people like this. People think it's quite a good way to communicate. Yeah, I like it very much. Very good. Now, the Bank of England, people really like fan charts. Banking have been doing this for years. Mervyn King really liked them. And there they produce these fans. The outer one is 90%, and then the next one is 87%. For growth and inflation over the next few years. Notice one thing, there's no black line. They do not give the best estimate. Because the newspapers, let's say, banker would say inflation will increase. No black line. There's a black line in the past, the ONS data, but what's quite interesting there is they say we don't know what's going to happen in the future, actually we don't know what's happening at the moment, and we certainly don't know what's happening in the past. So they're very honest about it in a way that is very reassuring to see. So that's good, that's what actually happened. Notice I didn't pick on 2007. That's what actually happened. And I showed that slide, right? We produced that one, right? We produced that one. I showed it from Mervyn King, a complete lack of any shame or apology whatsoever. And very right in a way, because in the small print, not in the graphic, in the small print, it's made reasonably clear that 5% of probabilities are unassigned at the bottom. These are 90% individual, 5 at the top and 5 at the bottom. Could be anyone. The bets are off. If it goes down here, it could be anyone. So this is fine. The 5 is not so. It's not very clear in the graphic. I think they should have dragons or something. 1 in 20 chance your guess is as good as mine. It's really what they're saying. In order to, that's deliberate to encourage resilience of banks and shocks, black swans, surprises, and things like that. So deliberate effort. And I'm jumping slightly from what I'm going to get on to, is the deeper uncertainty. When there's bits you can't model, but yet you want to warn people that you can't model. I don't think they did the warning very well. At the moment, for example, their fan charts, which says in reasonably large print that this assumes the euro doesn't collapse. It does. Your guess is good as mine. So these are contingent projections, and there's bits that don't bang against the wording in which stories are told. Now, I know people saw this campaign. Framing isn't all in Parliament's book. Right? You can change the impression, the emotional response, just by changing the word. So this was the 99% campaign. This was in the London Underground. It said 99% of young Londoners do not commit serious crimes. There's a positively framed message for advertising. So you think, oh, that's great. And then you stand next to it. Hang on. I think 1% of young Londoners do commit serious crimes. That population of about 8 million and over, so about 1 million, 15 or something. Or, what's that, a million, 10. Oh my God, there's 10,000 violent maniacs running around. It's a really dangerous city. You're not supposed to do that. You don't do that. That is engaging citizens too. You're supposed to just respond emotionally. And I have to say that I have been involved in one of these, I wouldn't say tricks, but framing devices. I was on a team working with DEFRA on the communication of climate uncertainty. And the point is that in the past, whenever, a bit like the Ian Donaldson's problem, you quote a high number, and everybody then reports the high number. And it could be as high as. That's what the papers did. And they were producing maps like this, showing the 50% point. But this is temperature warmers there at summer by the 2080s. The rise in temperature. And the medium emissions, that's what business is using. So 50% point, in terms of the distribution, the uncertainty, 50% point was about 3 degrees. The 10% point was about the same. And the 90% point was about 10 degrees rise. And they didn't want people to obsess about the 10 degrees, because all of the past coverage was, oh, temperature could be as high as 10 degrees, 10 or 12 degrees. Climate poor. That's the polar bear on the iceberg business. And they wanted to avoid that stuff. So what did they do after 3 hours of discussion? Instead of describing this as what it could be as high as, it was described as unlikely to be greater than. See what the trick is? Change it from a negatively framed message to a positively framed message. So they to attract attention from the topic, stop people to sit somewhere. Unlikely to greater, so they didn't get reported. So that I think is a really neat use of the pure language. The numbers stayed the same. It was just the packaging of the language, understanding the framing is a big difference between them. So since then, it's going to be absolutely obsessive about exact words to use in any communication. Absolute precision of language is required, because that gives an impression that we've taken on to others. So here's some more misunderstanding of numbers. This is a Fox News pie chart. I think the whole talk I'm just with Fox News around. So worried about that. But this is supposed to show you that the graphics can be useful. Okay, I'd like to look at an effort that's been made to reduce the framing bias, to actually give a fair bit of communication, where you're trying not to manipulate behaviour. So can you do it? Can you do it? Well, I was on a group that's recently trying to do it. It's the panel has been drawing up the new leaflets for breast cancer screening that are starting to go out to and this was based on the fact that many people knew that breast cancer screening is immensely controversial within the medical community. Deeply divided groups of people, they're very abusive and aggressive towards each other. So they commissioned an independent breast screening review, comprising people who've never worked on breast screening. The main qualification was that you knew nothing about breast screening. Splendid statement, just the man we need. I wasn't on this one. My colleagues were as statisticians, and they, the Lancet went into the leaflet. But the leaflet is going to be based, this is an amazing innovation. The leaflet, for the first time in sort of history or anywhere, is going to be based on the idea that the choice to be screened is a matter of informed choice. It's based on the idea of shared care. You make the decision in consultation with your doctor. So the new leaflets will present the pros and cons in a balanced way, uniform reporting of benefits and harms, will make a recommendation. So the cancer screening leaflet no longer recommends you do cancer screening. There's the innovation saying cervix and bowel, they do not recommend that you go to screening. They say, well, you could, in which case this might be this. So that's the innovation. So you're supposed to be trying to do balanced communication. And for example, I presented work to sort of thing they like, great, because it's exactly what the psychological literature suggests that they should like, are things like this. And frequency trees. No use of probability of chance, no relative greatest, no percentage. All in terms of whole numbers, what would we expect to happen in 200 women like you had? Go to the screen 20 years, and if they attend screen 15 will still develop breast cancer, because the screen doesn't stop breast cancer. 12, amazingly, 80% will be treated and survive for breast cancer, essentially. Cured, essentially. That would be very good stuff. So, incredibly good stuff. But sadly, 3 will sort of die from their breast cancer. Now, what if 200 women don't go for screening? So I'm not going to go for screening. This is what is expected to happen. The same number develop breast cancer, and 8 will be treated and survive, but 4 will die early from their breast cancer. So one extra death out of 200 that are going to go for screening. However, 3 of these women will never know they've got breast cancer. They will be subclinical. They won't know they've got it. They'll die something else. They'll never have any treatment or consider themselves a victim of breast cancer. So these, essentially, there's 3 what's called overdiagnoses and overtreatments. Don't know who they are. You can't distinguish yet the ones that the cancers that will grow and the ones that will just sit there and not die, unfortunately. So what that means is the trade-off is that if you go to screening, 1 cure death, 3 more treatments. This corresponds to 4,000 women at the moment each year in the country being treated unnecessarily. And 1,300 women whose early deaths are preventable. So that's in the lead. And the numbers are in the lead. But sadly, and I was a bit grumpy about that, the picture isn't in the lead. It got taken out of the last trial. There was certain words spoken about it, never mind, I had to give in. Among the big committee, because they tried it on some people, and I said, I don't understand. And this, I'd like to rattle this a bit about communication, because I know that I can explain this very well, and people will grasp it, if you've got a chance to explain it. But just seeing it on a piece of paper is quite tricky. There are other ways to communicate this, what happens in breast cancer treatment, because rather than to change your feelings about it, if I wanted to give you a negative aspect of it, a negative frame for breast cancer screening, I could. So here's a negative frame, just to show that people usually think it's good. Of survivors of breast cancer found in screening, how many owe their lives to the screening? The very common story is celebrities who say, oh, I so lucky I went to the screening, I found my breast cancer, it saved my life. So what we know is that out of 200 women, 12 will have their breast cancer found in screening and survive, but it's survive. So these are people who would say, oh, I went for screening, found cancer. But in fact, we know by comparing the 200 other women that 8 of those would survive anyway, breast cancer. 3 of them would never be treated, and 1 goes alive from screening. There's actually 8%, so 92% of people who think that their lives are take their screening are wrong. So that's a very negative, that does not appear in the that's a very negative effect. And this is the way the anti-screeners pose the argument. So this is what appears in the anti-screeners. So it's the same numbers can be framed very differently. But going back onto the numeracy thing, I get a bit grumpy about this because, the leaflet's written for a reading age of 11, but the numeracy are only reading less. And the leaflets are optimized for people with low numeracy. So they can understand. So they get one stuff that's taken out. However, there's reasonable research showing that low numeracy people avoid the idea of shared care and informed decision. Actually, we prefer paternalism to do, which is fair enough. Everyone's got the right to do that. But that means that the leaflets are designed for people who don't want leaflets. And that's the narrative. Currently, leaflets are designed for people who don't want leaflets. People who do want leaflets don't get it because it's nutrition. It's really true. People have started to recognise this. Some very good papers that are coming out saying we've got to have multi-layered communication materials. So what is available corresponds to what they want and what they need. And therefore you need supplementary fact sheets, you need hyperlinks. One size does not fit all. People are being ill-served by trying to cram everything into a pond format. We're using just lowest common denominator. So I think this is the interesting area in which all this stuff's going. That you can't say this is the right way to do it. No, people are so different, vary, needs and demands. There's no right way to make any of this. There is in terms of hazard ratios. So if you look at the epidemiological literature, you'll find out that 2 hours watching television increases your annual risk of death by 9%. So, and eating a sausage about 10%. The first 20 minutes getting off the sofa, 81% says 90% reduction in your annual risk of death from doing those behaviors. So that's stuff. Does anyone understand this? What does it mean to anyone? Well, not very much, because when you get stories like this on the red meat, the Daily Express, how do they report these stories, these relative risks? They say, well, if people cut down the amount of red meat they eat, 10% of all deaths could be avoided. This is wonderful. As a statistician, you immediately bang your head against the wall. Couldn't be better than this. So I'm going, again, getting away from the relative risks, which I think are disastrous ways of communicating, to change the metaphor. Again, storytelling. Let's tell stories, but in a balanced way that isn't trying to manipulate behavior. So the metaphor I'm fond of is speed of aging. Is your behavior making you older than you need? No, people don't want to get older. Maybe teenage girls, but most people don't want to get older quickly. Quite likely. So, and why we can do that from nice mathematics is because brilliant insights of dominance. Actually, one of the first actions lived to his 86, and in the early 1800s, this is a modern hazard curve, what's known as the force of mortality. He looked at the curve in the early 1800s and spotted a pattern. And the pattern was the same then as it is now. Now it all moved down a bit, but essentially the pattern is the same. So this is the chance of dying from the next birth. So here I'm 60, so on average, it's about 1%. One of the 60-year-olds don't make 61. Down here, the safest age is 7. 7 at the moment is the safest that anyone has ever been in the whole history of humanity anyway. 1 in 10,000 don't make very unbelievable seconds. So in America it's 10. Very clearly 7. There's bulge though at 17, it starts rising, so unfortunately sad behavior of men, especially with the jump to 17, and then it just settles down to that inevitable increase. But the increase, what let's realise, if you stand down here, from 7 to 95, it's a straight line, apart from the lump of youth. And certainly from 30 to 80, it's a straight line. Now that straight line is the same 200 years ago as now, so it's common in all civilizations, it's a straight line. But that means your risk of death goes up by a fixed percentage every year. That's 9%. Not you, but on average, actually, each of us probably works. Each of us has got our own level, but the gradient is probably very similar for all. So it's 9% per year, your risk of death goes up. That means your risk, on average, your risk will double for dying for an expert every 8 years. So let's go 28, 36, 44, 52, 60, double. So that's why it's going to get you in the end. You can't escape, double it. Back down. So, right, so what does that mean? Well, actually, the insight, which I had, and then I found out other people had was that 1.09, the hazard rate, means that each year you get older, it is like having a hazard ratio of 1.09. It's exactly the same as a daily sausage. So actually, 1.1, or sitting 2 hours and going to have it every day. If you watch 2 hours television a day, that's the same as actually your risk goes up the same amount as if you're a year old. It's putting a year on your age. Your age, taking a year off your daily dental habit, or your daily sausage habit. So we can, and this is known as the rate advancement period. So I thought I'd read this. No, of course, like a paper, translating risks into an equivalent change in your age. How much faster? So what it means mathematically is a habit that has a ratio of H, 1.09, so is essentially equivalent to advancing your age by 2 years. And that's the formula. So next time you read a newspaper story that says that, oh my God, cycling reduces your risk by your annual risk of death by 20%, in the newspaper recently, you say, oh yeah, that's about like taking 2 years off my age. is that, for example, the 2 hours watching television puts a year on your age, which you hear all. Daily sausage 1 year, so sitting in front of the telly, eating your sausage. Okay, then if you don't buy fruit and veg a day, if you do this, then 4 years off your age. And then if you get off your backside and move around a bit, which is the government guidelines of 20 minutes of moderate exercise a day, 2 years off your age. The next 40 minutes doesn't do so much at all. So you after a while, just don't watch it. Big male adds 4 years to your age, essentially, because every male has got the same amount of risk of dying as a female 4 years old. And that holds all the way through. And of course, these are related because that's probably because they're sitting watching television eating sausage, being slow. So that is their effect. You don't feel sorry. So basically, what the translation is, how old is your body? And I just want to know the first one. Do people know these websites? They haven't tried. My sister's obsessed with these. There's hundreds of these sites. You go there, you put in all your factors, and it tells you how old you really are. So this lady is my age, 60, but she's already a lot of chest stress, and she's 7 years on her age. Then they try to sell you something. They're all trying to sell you tablets or therapy or something like that. And so this is used commercially. I think it's a really good communication. Very good. And it's being used already. Our risk calculator tells you your heart age, how old your heart is. So you may be 50 if you're smoking, your heart age 58. The lung age, telling smokers how old their lungs are, has been shown to be effective very against smoking. So this rate advancement stuff, right, is a very powerful measure of how old you really are. And so it's something that we hope we see more. But essentially, your age being 1 year old, it's about the same as taking a year off your life. But if you just say, oh, this will take a year off your life, people just think, oh, it's just another year less being old and dribbly. I don't care about that. Kingsley Anger said, I'm not going to give anything up for the sake of another year in a nursing home and rest in Superman. Don't mean the rest in Superman. So, but then we think about, okay, what is taking a year? Here's another metaphor. Another metaphor. A year off your life, for young people, there are some people. So young people have got about 50 years left, 50, 60 years in their adult life. You're in your 20s, so 50, 60 years adult life. So a year off that is like about 2%. So pro rata, that's about a week every year, or half an hour a day. So you could say losing a young person, having habits, and a year off their life, like Downton Abbey, is equivalent to taking 30 minutes off your life expectancy for each day. Watch Downton Abbey for 2 hours, it's half an hour of your life. That is another way. That's a really direct, because it's related to sausage, another half hour. So we call this a micro life. And this comes back, instead of micro morph is one in a million chance of dropping dead like that. A micro life is a millionth of your life. And why is it a millionth of your life? Turns out, it's 1.5 million hours is 57 years. So you young people, you've got 1.5 million hours. You wasted two listening to me. Never to be gone. Eurovision Song Contest, 6 gone, that's like this. Frittering these things away. Millions, you're a little stop in a million. You can actually buy watches now that count down how long you've got to live. Go backwards. But the point about this is saying you can make the watch go slower or faster. Depending on how you do it. So you can think of by your habits. On average, these habits make you probably 1 year older, or essentially you take a half an hour for life. So the burgers. So that's what I'm doing. And the booze is interesting because I'm looking forward to my first drink. I should stick at one drink because the evidence seems to be really that one of the first drink each day is stage gives your life like the medicine, gives your life like half an hour on your life for the first drink each day. Unfortunately, for people like me, it then goes poison, you lose it. And roughly about 15 minutes per unit. So tell me that 3 units, and units are quite small, you're about to quit, and that's the rate of consumption, and then you're about to quit, and then it's harming all that. So by the time you've had a few cans, you're losing your half hour. So, right, pro rata is 15 minutes of life. So 20 cigarettes a day, it's 5 hours a day you're losing. So you're going towards your death for 29 hours instead. And this last one really, you might want to look away. This one. Have to warn school kids. This is not for those who are nervous disposition. Sadly, it's maybe 5 kilograms overweight. And the latest meta-analysis suggests every 5 kilograms you're overweight is a hazard ratio of 1.09 again. The Downton Abbey, the sausage, the drinks, the couple of cigarettes, a half an hour. So these are they're metaphors. We publish this stuff, but we'll see if it oh yeah, this is some orange juice. Some more of this. You're an airport discovered they would live longer than your friend. Who are you going to talk to? Now, oh yeah, I've got a few minutes. Is that right? A few more minutes? Don't mind? Okay, a few more minutes. Let's just look at the final stuff. Now, so far, I've been assuming that we know all the numbers. And actually we don't, because this epidemiology is not great for it. So we're pretty good at this study. Wait, but a lot of the others are good. So what I want to talk about is deeper uncertainty and how different groups are trying to deal with that when science isn't understood. For example, IPCC, climate change. They've been desperately trying to impose some discipline of communication uncertainty on their panels. And one thing they firstly position is that if you use words like very likely, they would have mean something. So very likely means 90 to 100%. Extremely likely means 95%, because the latest assessment, the belief that we have caused essentially global warming has gone up from 90 to 95%. Very extremely low. But what they say is that you should only be using those expressions of probability in situations of what we call high confidence. But this is what I want to get onto this idea of the star rating of your model. So they are only willing to put probabilities on things when they're confident about the science of their model. Whatever you think about climate models, definitely some that are better than others, some areas are better than others. And they, for example, they will only put probabilities when they're natural. Good scientific evidence, prior to main audiences, and actually agreement between experts and models about what's going to happen. And otherwise, they're not willing to put those probabilities. So they've got these two elements, which are actual likelihood scale, the risk scale, and another scale which says, actually, do we know what we're talking about? And it's this one that I find interesting. And a number of different agencies, intelligence, others, have been trying to work for this. It's a star rating on how well they understand the phenomenon they're trying to invent. In particular, let's make a few points here. Talking to people in the MOD who are doing intelligence estimates of terrorism, the thing that makes their intelligence analysts most unhappy about their whole analysis, their risk analysis, is if they know there's a bit of information that they could have, but they haven't got yet. In other words, in a state of ignorance. So the uncertainties to do with the knowledge, not to do with the essential unpredictability. It's called epistemic uncertainty. If there's something, if only we had this, we really go to know a lot, it makes you very uncomfortable about giving a risk assessment, saying how likely it is. Whereas if you feel you've got all the information you could possibly have, then it's essentially, well, I've got to make some judgment. So that's an interesting sort of psychological finding, which I think is very reasonable. And where people, due to the inadequacy of the information they have, are unwilling to be confident about the analysis. So we've been developing recently from a judge business school, a sort of rough starring a scale of 4 different models. So if you think of a model as comprising a number of things, you've got one bit of the model is what might happen with events, and then you've got your parameters, the numbers that are going into the model, and then you've got the structure of the model, the actual scientific understanding of how the model works, and then of course you've got values and losses, which you may have about what's important, what you've chosen to model. And I find this quite useful when I'm looking at it. It sort of tells me about some risk analysis they're doing. So, okay, what are they doing with their uncertainty? Are they denying it? Are they just saying, we know exactly what will happen? And that's fairly rare, but it can happen. When it's real epidemic, it can happen. The other one is when you're very confident. You're confident enough to put probability distributions in. You feel, yeah, this is I know it's like flipping a coin. You really know what's going on. You understand the science. You feel happy about 50-50. You predict what's going to happen, but you really know what's going to happen. The next one, and there's a big gap between these two, because you've got all sorts of ideas of what we might know, but intervals and probabilities, we might do all sorts of things. And the next one is where you can actually say we're going to talk about possibilities, with lists of. And of course, this doesn't apply for whole models, because in climate change, for example, they will model some things with some detail, but then say in terms of scenarios, we can only do lists. So this is a deterministic sensitivity analysis to different assumptions. It's just possibility to be listed. Then, and that's standard. Then I think really the interesting bit. The interesting bit is where people then are prepared to have the humility to admit that their models are inadequate. And that's where I feel that there's a lack of language for doing this. So one of the things we think of as specified inadequacies is when you know, you're very aware of the limitations of what you've done. We don't know how to model certain things. There are other possible inputs. We know our models are left out certain factors. We actually listen. We don't know how to model this. We know our models are inadequate. Okay? And that's the humility to admit that. And then, of course, you've got the final thing, which is when you don't even know what you've left out. You know there's aspects that you just feel uncomfortable about it because there's stuff that isn't in there, but you can't even list what it is that you've left out. Unspecified analysis. So it's acknowledge of real ignorance. And that's in the situation that the Bank of England were doing, where it's just saying, be ready for surprises. We're not even going to model this. We could list the possible inadequacies, like the euro collapsing, which is an example of the specified inadequacies, because they're actually listing the possible things that they haven't put into the model, but they also say we should have general resilience to things we haven't even thought of. The Bank of England was struggling with this, not communicating it very well. So it's funny, it's a mixture of psychology and modelling, and it's non-quantitative to do with inadequacies. So I find this really quite useful. Then of course you go full circle, because this is acknowledged ignorance, and if you go full circle, you'll deny everything full circle, that's meta-ignorance, because you don't know that you're ignorant. So the top one is you actually get a nice circle. Okay, so the one element of the area where this could be applied was in crises. For example, the killer cucumbers. Remember the killer cucumbers? They're great in Germany. And the typical is the Spanish Minister of Agriculture stuffing herself for all she can with organic cucumbers to show how safe they were. And but they did find E. coli in the cucumber. It was actually the wrong E. coli, it wasn't the one that was given. Cucumbers were completely exactly. €100 million loss, and the Spanish are still trying to get it back up to Germany because they didn't even, the lab didn't acknowledge the uncertainty. They said, oh, we found it. They hadn't found it. In fact, there was striking Egyptian pedigree disease. So that was an example of bad, lack of humility. So John Krebs is fantastic on this. I don't want to go too much, so I'll just put this up quickly. John Krebs, who is Food Standards Agency, had a real sort of process of dealing with crises. You have to do lots of about additives and American and all that stuff. And he was really emphasising the acknowledgement of uncertainty, being really open about the uncertainty. Not just risk, about probability, but we don't know what the risks are. We don't know what the chances are. But always emphasising contingency that we are learning all the time and we may adapt and we'll find out what we'll come back to. And this is what we can do in the meantime. And we're confident about what we're telling you to do. Be cautious. Now, I mean, he said, oh, well, maybe we don't think there's a problem with the land, but if you don't need it, don't eat it. We'll come back to you. He doesn't say, oh, it's safe. He never says anything safe. Unlike the classic example where people do think it's safe, slightly better. Okay, I'll come to that in a minute. I'm nearly finished now. The second last slide. So, well, as a summary of my talk, really, I garble, various things. What I'm struggling with, what the book is about as well, is about the fact there's two ways of thinking about this. System 2, using the brain, being rational, hate under pressure, because we're not like this, weighing things up. And system 1, which is using your guts, relying on feelings, emotion, culture, emotion, feelings. And the point is, it's not like it's a choice between these. We, being human, are a mixture of these. And so the point is to try to combine them in the most efficient way as possible, maybe sort of halfway between. So that's the essence of the talk. What I wanted to finish off with, sorry about it so long, was the example of overconfidence in a crisis. I'm sure many of you can remember this. John Gunner force-feeding his 4-year-old daughter Cordelia a British beef burger, to show British beef is safe. Yeah, well, it wasn't actually. We think she's okay now. They did there was an XCJD and destroyed it as a cattle and all sorts of stuff. But the interesting thing I want to point out is that one forensic photographic analysis reveals the important fact that this is not the bike mark of a 4-year-old. Don't believe anything else. Thanks very much.
I'm certain of at least one thing that we all really enjoyed and valued. They only agreed to ask you comments and questions.
Before we get the first drink.
Or even the second.
The old second.
Is there a danger of misleading people into thinking that by watching less TV they would increase their life expectancy? When that's not necessarily the case, you're implying a causality when there might just be some other common cause.
Exactly. It's very good. None of these actually tell you, and I'm afraid because my language is slipping but so easily, none of these show that stopping these activities will have any effect on yourself. Except I think the smoking one, I'd be happy to say the smoking, you'll very much live longer. In taking up exercise, you reach reasonable level of thermal intervention. But the dietary stuff, very difficult to show the effects of changing diet. A lot of these things will have a common factor. So these are epidemiological associations, they're not direct causal. Now, I know you're absolutely right. I mean, what you're talking about is the cluster of a lifestyle, rather than saying, that's sausage. If you don't eat that sausage, you will live half an hour longer. Fortunately, because nobody can ever prove you wrong. That's very clear. The TV one is interesting because I think the thing on exercise is that's corrected for total energy expenditure. So that's not that these are slobs necessarily. They may go and do some exercise afterwards. It's this completely sedentary, it's completely removal. Which is why, of course, people know standing up offices, you're supposed to get up and move every hour, you have to do all that, use the stairs. It's completely sensible. It's this absolutely sedentary person pretty bad for you. I don't know whether there is evidence on actually changing people's sensitivity. It's what I'd be almost prepared to say could have caused it. If you get up and move around, it will do.
Yeah.
But you're right, absolutely right.
That was fascinating. Thank you very much. At the path of the hurricane, you showed us the cone possibility, and you also showed us the spaghetti.
Spaghetti, yes.
The spaghetti worried me very much because if you look at it and you are, say, on Tuesday and you're at a certain point, you're going to expect it to go to the following points on that particular piece of spaghetti, which is not the way it is. So I don't know.
Right, yes. I don't know whether they then, because you'd hope that they would actually recalculate the whole spaghetti each day, which we'd hope they do. So if they do that, I don't think it's so bad. You can't assume it's going to be one of those, and once it's on, it's going to sit, because it could go anywhere. So you're absolutely right. It's only the spaghetti from now. These are possible. These are possibilities. You can't assume that you will just carry on. Yes, it depends how they're used. But you're right. That would be a danger of convincing people that somehow you will just set on that trajectory.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's your take on the risk of cycling in London?
No, I use this as an example because I cycle down on a bar spot today. There's nowhere to park them. No, and I use this quite a lot, and I've been writing a bit about it on More or Less and things like that because cycling in London is risky. And we've just done an analysis which we're publishing on the 6 deaths in 2 weeks. Interesting because you have to use this idea. I mean, the rate at the moment is 0.6 deaths for 2 weeks. So it is a Poisson distribution. For the last 8 years, fits the Poisson almost exactly. But this cluster, 6 in 2 weeks, is obviously way in the tail of a Poisson being 0.6. But the point is, you have to think over those 8 years. you know, in any moving 2-week window, what's the chance of getting actually? That's the whole thing of scan statistics. But actually, the approximations to do that are quite simple to program in. It works out that over 8 years, to get 6 deaths in any 2-week moving window, there's only a 2.5% chance. So it really was a cluster. Not, you know, mostly these clusters turn out to be, you'd expect it to be quite long. But it really was a cluster. I can't think of what was in common with them. But it really was very surprising, that 6. So anyway, I mean, cycling in London, I think, got to be very careful indeed. But basically, as a cyclist in London, I feel we've just got to improve the infrastructure. It's disgrace expecting people to do it when the infrastructure is so bad and so dangerous. So I think you've got to fix it, because people point to, the numbers are increasing, and this whole thing of safety in numbers, Smeed's law, is controversial. Because people say that in Holland and in Denmark, there's lots of cyclists and a very low fatality rate, but they also have much better facilities, structure for them. So you can't expect safety in numbers to work on its own. I'm not going to talk about hobbies.
Dave, great talk, thank you. Your use of terms like microlife and microwars can maybe suggest risk as a linear thing that you can add up. How do you deal with tipping points?
Yeah, they do assume linear. I typically, one of the slides I make a joke that giving birth is, 80 micromoles or whatever. It's about the same as a motorbike ride London to Edinburgh. Trying to give birth on the motorbike. You can't add these up. It's not. So they are largely out. Interesting, the micro life stuff. And people ask about this. Can you really just add up these points, like the programs? It looks the epidemiological stuff. I've seen. I like you can. They don't seem to get these interactions going on. These classic behaviour skills tend to occur in clusters. It's quite difficult. It looks like you can. But public health people don't like people doing it because it says it will encourage them to trade off behaviours. Or I've done the job, now I'm going to few facts. Which of course seems to be completely rational behaviour. But I think statistically you can trade.
I'm looking forward to walking home to making
Yes, I have a bit of quarrel with your early chart, which made it seem as if it's riding a motorcycle is safer than walking.
No.
Well, that's what the charts.
Yeah, no, exactly. The trouble is, I changed it from micromoles per mile to miles per mile. So that chart shows 6 miles. It was short because it was so dangerous, because that was the miles per micromole chart.
But even so, whichever way you do it, you walk, partly as recreation, and you spend time doing it. It's not the distance you go.
Exactly. Now, it's a really good point. In that this classic economic measure is per mile, because they're talking about exchanging journeys and things like that. So it's part of transport report per mile. But the personal interest, the feeling of this is per hour, is a much more natural way to do it. So I actually like micromoles per hour as a measure. So cycling, for example, micromoles per hour is 0.4 an hour on average. And so you compare it. And then they, of course, become actually quite a lot more similar to driving, things like that, per hour. And what's interesting there is in planes. The planes per distance work out a massive number of miles per mile in commercial. Not a little. General aviation is about 12 miles a micromile. It's almost about a bit on a motorbike. That's why I won't go up with the plane anymore. It's the one thing I won't do. Yeah, I will not do that. I won't get on a motorbike and I won't go up on the anything like that. I still stuff myself with bad food. So distance, the feeling of being in a passenger deck. I mean, all the accident risk is just in the 15 minutes of takeoff, and essentially. Then per minute, the risk is, it's about, I think, the same as in a passenger jet, the risk of actually at the time when you are most nervous landing and taking off, it's the same as if you're cycling. So there's some reason for being nervous about it. It's not entirely deluded per minute.
Should surely it's going to be more dangerous to cycle across the Atlantic.
Yeah, yes. A mile,
Maybe one start more.
Given the acknowledged complexities of human behaviour, we've touched on a number of them, such as those with lower education tend to shy away from things that communicate in numbers and long words and so on, and those with higher education tend to believe their own rhetoric rather than taking a point of view. How much do you think that, in terms of the balance of the challenge here, we can't ever communicate our way out of this problem?
Yeah.
We can only do it through educating and getting people with a better position of understanding.
Absolutely. If you think that presenting things in transparent communication is going to make people say, thank you very much, I'm now become a rational person, it's absolute nonsense. This stuff has almost no effect on behaviour at all. And endless trials have shown that really good communication numbers. I bet these cancer screening leaflets don't influence behaviour at all. So why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? I think first thing there's an ethical duty to do it, because if you don't provide transparent information, the only thing people have got is a to respond to a completely deterministic attitude, or to listen to all the nonsense that you get from the news. So I think it is a duty to provide transparent information, even if it's ignored as largely is. The other thing is, hugely, is about improving education. And it looks like it might be moving a bit more in that direction, so that people are able to critique and deconstruct the numbers they hear in the news and don't be so manipulated. But my basic interest in this, and many people say that everyone's gut feelings are just fine, but when you have engaged this sort of slightly more rational thing, is when people are trying to manipulate. They're trying to sell you opinions and products and things like that in newspapers. And then you have to say, hang on, but, this one thing has happened. What about a million times it hasn't happened? That kind of stuff. So the psychologists, there's some psychologists I think who really hit the nail on the head. What they say, what they're trying to do with good communication isn't to change behaviour, or even understanding people. How they measure the effect is that they're trying to breed immunity to misleading anecdote. And you can do an experiment on that, because you randomise your audience. You do one half, rubbish communication, the other half, good transparent communication, using icon arrays, using nice long numbers, really clear. And then you randomise again, and give half of you representative stories about an operation, about what happens to most people, and the other half, ludicrously extreme stories about, I heard this happen to somebody. And then you look at what people's opinions are, and the people who've been given the good representation are less influenced by the bad stories. And it's simply, yes, that's what you have to do. Try and reduce the impact of misleading stuff. Yes. So I thought that was really good. Actually, what's what we're trying to do.
Well, I think we have to draw a close there. This could obviously run on as we plan for a full discussion afterwards, but I mustn't delay any longer your chance to make one of those interesting decisions about
one or two.
But can we please give